Section 1.3 and 1.4 are about solving linear equations and rewriting formulas and equations. And essentially they're the same thing, so that's why they're in one section together. So first off, let's review solving equations. This is Algebra 1 stuff. This is just solving two-step equations. So here we have our variable is p, so we're going to be solving for p. So your goal is you want your variables on one side and your constants on the other side so you can solve for the p. And it doesn't really matter what side you put stuff on. I always like to put my variable on the left side, so that's what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter what you do. So I'm going to subtract 9p on both sides, so I get rid of that. And over here I'm going to have negative 2p, and then write the rest of the formula. So I have plus 13 left over on that side, and over here I have a negative 5. The next step, get your constants on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 13 to the other side. So I have negative 2p equals negative 18. The last step would be to divide by negative 2. So p equals 9. The next one is similar, except this time we have a fraction involved. First thing you want to do is get the x all by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 8 to the other side. So the x is by itself. So now I have 4/5 x equals 12. Now to get rid of that fraction, you can think about you're going to divide by 4/5, but this looks disgusting and I wouldn't want to deal with a fraction inside of a fraction. So instead of dividing, the same thing is just by multiplying by the reciprocal. So multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. So those cancel. And you have x equals, if you multiply 12 by 5/4, the trick is, there's a little trick, you can just do 12 times 5, which is 60, and then divide by 4. So the answer is 15. So I want you to go ahead and do this one in your notes. Same kind of concept. The last one I want to do with just solving equations is this one because it has a lot of fractions in it. And you do the same thing even though there's fractions. So my goal again is to get my variables on one side and my constants on the other side. So with this 4/9 x, I'm going to move it to this side, so I'm going to subtract 4/9 x. So they cancel out over here. And if I subtract these two, I get kind of a nasty fraction. It's negative 55 over 63. Don't forget your x. It looks gross, but it's fine. That's what we need. Please do not write a decimal. I don't want decimals because that's an approximation and we want the exact answer, so keep it as a fraction. Next step is to add the 2/9 to the other side. I'm going to go up here. Oops, forgot my x. So when you add 1/7 and 2/9, again the fraction is kind of weird. You get 23 over 63. So the last step would be to get the x alone. So you need to divide by this or multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by negative 63 over 55. So they cancel and I just have x equals, when you multiply fractions, just multiply straight across. So I'm going to do 23 times negative 63, which gives me 1,449. And on the bottom I have 63 times 55, which gives me 3,465. And to simplify, if I divide those two, my final answer is 23 over 55. So x equals 23 over 55. Alright, now that we've talked about solving these equations, let's look at writing an equation from information given to us. So this problem says, during one shift you earn a wage of $30 and you get an additional 15% in tips on the customer's food bills. You earn $105 for the So what is the total of the customer's bill? Alright, so you know that no matter what, in the night, you earn $30. Straight up, that's what you earn, 30 bucks. On top of that, so added to that, you get 15% in tips that was off of the customer's food bill. So on top of this $30, you're going to earn 15%. Remember, 15% has a decimal, move it over 2 times. So 15% of whatever the customer's food bill was. So I'm just going to use B for bill. So you earn $30, and on top of that, so plus, you also earn 15% of the bill. So really we're just taking these words and putting it into math. That has to equal 105 because it says in the night you earned 105. So all of this should add up to $105. So the final question is, what is the total of the customer's bill? Well, that's easy now that we have this. We just have to solve for B. So get your variable by itself, subtract the 30. So we have 0.15B equals 75. Then divide by 0.15. And you should get the bill to be $500. Now to double check to see if you're right, if that's correct, if you plug that in for B, you should get $105. So check to see if you're right. Plug in $500 to see if the bill was $500, would you earn 105? And when you type that in, you should get 105. Use order of operations and you should get 105. So $500 is the correct answer. So in your notes, I want you to do one similar to this. It says, it takes you 8 minutes to wash a car, and it takes your friends 6 minutes to wash a car. How long does it take the two of you to wash 7 cars if you work together? The key is, whenever you're doing something at a rate, like here it says it takes 8 minutes to wash 1 car, you're going to need a variable. So you're probably going to have a variable for each person, and somehow you're going to have to get it equal to 7 cars. So go ahead and try that in your notes. The last section is talking about rewriting equations, and really you're solving for equations in almost the same way. It's just that there's more letters. There's not just one variable. So for example, here we have solve the formula C equals 2 pi r for r. So in this equation, we want to solve for r. Right now it's solved for C, we want to solve for r. So we need to get r all by itself. So we have to think, how do we get r by itself? Well, we have to get rid of this 2 and this pi. Right now this whole side is being multiplied, so the opposite to get rid of this stuff would be to divide. So you're going to divide both sides by 2 pi. Because then it's going to cancel here, and you're left with C over 2 pi equals, on this side you're just left with r. And you're done, because you were supposed to solve for r and you did. That's it. So this one says Q equals C plus D over 2, and you're supposed to solve for C. This one's a little bit more complicated because there's a weird fraction going on. First thing is, if what you want to solve for is up here, you need to get rid of this 2 first before you can do anything. So first thing, get rid of this 2, and the opposite, right now it's being divided by, so the opposite would be to multiply. So to get rid of this 2, we have to multiply both sides by 2. So they cancel over here, and on this side you have 2Q equals C plus D. Last step to solve for that C would be to subtract the D. So now you have on this side, you can't actually subtract these. You can't subtract Q and D. That doesn't make sense. So you're literally going to write 2Q minus D equals C. And you're done because you had to solve for C and you did. So I want you to try this one in your notes. It's a little bit different. It might be a challenge. But this one is flipped. Now the 2 is on the top, and they want you to solve for C. See and figure out if you can solve for C on this one. The last problem I want to do in your notes is this formula. Solve for W in P equals 2L plus 2W. There's 2 ways you can do this, and I'll show you both ways to show you that it doesn't matter which way you solve, you're going to get the same answer. On the left-hand side, I'm going to do what most of you would probably do. If we're solving for W, I want to get W by itself. So we need to get rid of 2L. So you should be subtracting 2L to get rid of it on this side. So you have P minus 2L equals 2W. And the last step to solve for W would be to divide by 2. Now when you divide by 2, you need to make sure you're dividing the entire side over here by 2. So then your final answer would be W equals P minus 2L over 2. Now another way you can do it is, if both of these terms have a 2, you can actually pull out that 2 right away and rewrite it as L plus W. So then you can divide the 2 out first. Whoops, forgot my plus. And then subtract the L. So you get P over 2 minus L equals W. Now these are the same thing. I want you to recognize that these are the same. Because if we were to simplify this one, we would take both terms divided by 2, both the P and the 2L. If I did that, if I rewrote this like this, I split it up and divided each term by 2, these 2's would cancel out, and I would just be left with P over 2 minus L, which is what we got over here. So I want you to recognize that these are the same thing. That's a hard concept, and I want you to try and grasp that.